So, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us here today with Professor Upalat. And thank you, Professor Upalat. We are extremely pleased and honored that you accepted our invitation and made the time to be here with us. Before we introduce Professor Upalat's academic background and the main topic of today's conference, we would like to share a few words about Gesshin Association, especially for those of you who are new to our association. Gesshin is a student association run by students of Foscari University of Venice, dedicated to spreading awareness and exploring topics centered around Japanese culture and East Asian studies. Now, Matilda will introduce Professor Upalat and the main topic of this conference.
Hello, everyone, and hello, Professor Upalat. Thank you once again for joining us today. So Professor Upalat is Associate Professor in the Faculty of Social Sciences at Waseda University. And in his research, he focuses on economic, environmental, social development, and sustainability. And in this session in specific, he's going to focus on aging and age societies, presenting the socioeconomic trends and development in East and Southeast Asia. So it is crucial to discuss how we can achieve fiscal sustainability, especially in the face of significant societal shift following the of COVID-19, and especially because it affected the elderly more than most other groups. So we will explore what kind of measure the government will have to implement, especially to ensure social protection, easy access to healthcare, and general inclusiveness for aging populations. And now, Professor, we will now pass the floor to you.
Okay, thank you very much for your kind introduction, and thank you so much for hosting me today as well. So actually, maybe you don't know Sarah, but Sarah is used to be the member of this Gesshin, and then she came to Waseda University as an exchange student, and she took my class. So suddenly she just approached me and then asked me to give a lecture to this event, and I was happy that she asked me, and it's my pleasure to be here today as well. So I hope we can learn from each other, not just you learn from me, but I can also learn from you as well, like from the case of Italy or something like that. Okay, then let me share my screen, and then we can start. Okay, so let's start our session today. I think I have around an hour, right? So I try to finish within 45 minutes, and then we can have Q&A session. So okay, so just before I give a talk, I usually just introduce myself briefly, so what is my background, and where I came from, and what kind of study that I have been doing before, doing this kind of study or give the lecture. So this is just my brief educational background. So I was educated in Thailand. So basically I'm Thai, but I moved to Japan, to Tokyo Waseda University since 2009. So I have been living here 15 years already. So you can just ask me any questions about Japan or Tokyo as well if you have one, or anything that relate to our presentation today as well. And this is my career path. So before I graduated from the PhD program, I joined JICA Research Institute. You may have heard about this before, but for those who don't know about this institute, it's just the Japanese development agency. So they try to help developing countries in terms of financial resources, or in terms of capacity building, or technological improvement, and so on. So this is the three keys aspects that JICA is doing. But I was just research associate, so I was doing research in about Indonesia and then some part of Asia at that time. And then I joined a few organizations, and then I came back to Waseda University as an associate professor. And these are some of the international organizations that I have been working with. But mainly I've been working with Asian Development Bank Institute, because my background, it's more related to development studies or development economics. So that's why today I kind of cover about this like aging society as well, because it links to the development issues. Okay, so today, if I speak too fast, please let me know as well. But today, this is the outline, and I will just walk you through like all these sections today. So we will start with the overview of the demographic outlook in East and Southeast Asia, just to give you some of the, like picture, some of the image, like what is the trend of our demographic outlook now. But I will mainly focus on Japan because I guess like most of the audience here, like they are more like you are more interested in like the case of Japan or like case of East Asia. And then we will move to the second section, which is about the fiscal balance in East and Southeast Asia. So just give you the overview, like what is the current like situation of the fiscal balance. One thing, this is not very technical like presentation because I guess like you have different backgrounds, like not everyone, like from the economics like school. So that's why I will try to put like the contents like in a simple terms and stuff. But if you have any questions, of course, just feel free to ask me anytime. And then the third section will link section 1 and section 2 together. So basically, I will just link the issue or the not really problem, but more like an issue of population aging or like aging population and fiscal burden. And I will end my presentation with the policy implications, like how should we tackle or how should we prepare ourselves like in order to respond to this current issue. Okay, so first I just give you background on this topic, like why it's important. So I guess like most of the developed like economies or countries, like most of them already experience this like phenomena of rapidly increasing like elderly population. I guess like in European countries as well, like in Italy as well, like you are like kind of enter the stage of age society already. And that's also applies like to some of Asian economies or Asian countries as well, including Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, like even China. It's kind of like enter this kind of stage. And then we have from Southeast Asia, we have Singapore, Thailand, and Malaysia that already enter the age population society. And with this increasing like elderly population, we also see the declining birth rate. So these two phenomena just linked to this kind of aging population. So because of the declining birth rate, we see the shrinking of the working age population, right? Because like there are no young people working, not many young people working like in our economies or in our societies anymore. Of course, like you are still young, but compared to like baby boomers like period, the number of the population is getting much smaller compared to that generation, and that's kind of create imbalance like between intergeneration, and that can cause like economic and social issues. And because we have like fewer working population or lesser working population, then like we cannot collect tax as much as before, right? So the government income is declining over time because like less people is working in the labor market, and then we cannot get like as much as tax as before, right? Like we cannot just suddenly increase tax by today or tomorrow, right? Because we have to see about our currencies or like other standard of livings and so on. So I think the general trend is that like we see the reduction of the government income. And because of this reduction of government income, then we can see that the quality or even the quantity of the social welfare programs like are declining, right? So because government, they cannot afford like the same quality of social services anymore, so they have to cut like some features. For example, before this is just example, but for example, before like the healthcare system might cover like cancer or something like that, but now because like they don't have enough money anymore, so they have to cut this kind of feature. So like social welfare or this healthcare insurance does not cover cancer anymore, something like that. So this is applied to healthcare system and also pension system as well, and we will talk a little bit about this like in the next few slides. Okay, so now I would like to focus a little bit on like how Japanese government respond like to this kind of issues, or what are the issues in Japan. So basically, the Japanese government is investing like heavily in long-term care systems, including nursing homes and home care services, but the demand is outpacing supply, because we can see like the skyrocket increase in the number of the elderly in Japan. So I think now the percentage of the population age above 65 years old, it's over 21% in Japan, and that costs a lot, like in terms of GDP as well, or in terms of the gross domestic products. Okay, and the government also tried to like put some reforms like in terms of the pension system as well, because like I think like people start to worry like whether they will get the money that they pay like for the pension system when they are getting older. Like for example, like this, like the old people at this at the current situation, maybe they can enjoy all these pension funds or pension systems, but maybe in my generation, so now I'm like 37, so I will retire in like 30 or 40 years like from now, right? So after these 40 years, I might not get any money back, even though I'm paying like every month now, because like now I kind of finance all this, like aging population in Japan. But the thing is, like the working population is kind of declining, and the proportion is much lesser than the aging population. So that's why maybe in the future, like people who pay for the pension funds today might not get enough money back like in the future. So that's kind of a very serious issue now. And because of this aging population, we can also link the issues in terms of labor market as well, as I just explained, because we see the declining number of the working age population. So the Japanese government tried to increase like workforce participation, including by women and by the elderly. So like you have to like, if you don't know about Japan, like actually Japan is quite interesting society. So even now you can see like some of the families that only husbands like work in the labor market, so the wife, they just stay home and then take care of kids, or like take care of like house chores and stuff. But now like the government tried to increase the number of female like in the labor force, so they try to give incentive like in terms of like child care, or in terms of like other things that women can benefit like when they enter the labor market. And also they try to increase like workforce participation like of the elderly people as well. So for example, they want to expand like longer working years. So now I think normally if you work in Japan, the retirement age is 65 years old. So now they want to extend to like 70 or 75 or something like that. And then for the and then it's connect to this delayed retirement, right? So they want people to work longer years than before. But for me, like I just want to retire like as soon as possible. So I don't think I will have energy to work until like 65 or like 70. But like some of you may know, Japanese they are very hardworking. So they like most of professor like they work like even after the retirement. So they still write some papers or like do some research until they're like 70 or 75 or something like that. And then I'm not sure whether you are familiar with this Abenomics or womenomics, but it's just like government try to create like certain policies in order to support like women like to work in the society. So like when no, not Abe, prime minister, like he was in his power, then he tried to, promote like female participation, like in the parliament or in the, political, political atmosphere as well. So that's where he tried his best to bring like women in the political and economic circumstance or like environment. And in order to respond to this like domestic issue, like the government also try to bring in more labor like from abroad. So we can talk about like immigration as well. Like if you have chance to visit Tokyo now, like you can see, of course, like there are so many tourists now, but there are also many people who migrate like from Southeast Asia or like South Asia or some other parts of the world, like in order to work in Japan. So if you go to like convenience stores or like restaurants, you might not see Japanese staff anymore. So like most of them are from like Vietnam, Indonesia, Thailand, or like Middle East or something like that. So I think this kind of change just happened like recently, maybe 5 years ago or 5 to 6 years ago. Like when I just first came to Japan, I didn't see that much. Of course, like I saw many Korean and Chinese like in Tokyo, but not like people from Southeast Asia or people from like Middle East or South Asia. But now if you go to like convenience stores or like restaurants, you can see this kind of migrant labor or workers. I also one of these like migrants like labor as well, because I moved from Thailand to Japan and then start working in Japan. And the Japanese government also put lots of effort like in terms of technological innovations. They try to promote like this robotic like caregivers or like AI technologies in order to support the elderly. And apart from this economic aspect, we can also looking at this like social impact as well. So if we go to like rural areas, we might see this kind of situation of the depopulation like in rural areas. So like only old or like elderly like live in the rural areas, because like young people, they want to get like good jobs, so they migrate like to big cities. So only old people, they just live in like small cities like outside, right? And sometimes like it even become ghost towns, so like no one live there anymore. So this kind of situation happen in Japan. But of course, like if you go to China now, you can see this kind of situation as well, and maybe in South Korea as well. And then we also observed like fewer multi-generational households. So in the past, like we lived in the extended family, right? Extended family is the family that contain multiple generations of like family members. For example, we live with our parents, and then live with our grandparents, and maybe there are some, other cousins like uncles or aunts that live nearby or live together in one compound. So that's the extended family. But because of this, modern life, like our lifestyle change, and people move around like quite easily. So that's why we moved away from extended family to nuclear family, right? So for example, my family, I just live with my parents and my brother and me. So only four of us, compared to maybe 10 people like in one family, which is like extended family. Yeah. And now my family is like even became like smaller. So now I moved to Japan and I live with my partner. So only two of us. We don't have kids. So it's even become smaller, and that's part of the issue, right? Why we see the decline birth rate. It's because of like people lifestyle or people value has been changed, right? Okay. So because people like elderly, they live by themselves now. They don't live like in extended family. So there is no one there to support them, like when they are sick or when they cannot move or when there is something happen, right? So that's why nowadays, like most of like elderly in Japan, they live in kind of, like apartment with other elderly that there is, like healthcare service or this kind of like elderly care, like elder care services provide in that compound, or they even, hire their own helpers like to come at home, right? So and this like give one big implication, right? So before they lived with family, so they don't have to pay for this kind of services because they are family. So like their kids or their grand children just help them for free. But now like they live by themselves, so they have to pay for this kind of services. Of course, like they get some support from the government, but not all, right? So this can also decrease their saving, and that saving also, link to their welfare as well, right? So this can also like pose some kind of challenges or issues to the elderly, because like most of the elderly, like when they retired, they don't work anymore because it's difficult for them to work, or maybe the labor market does not provide any opportunities for them anymore. So they don't have income basically. So they just live on their saving or the pension fund. But now they have more costs to pay, right? Not just their food, but now they have to pay for this elder care services, and this can affect their standard of living or like social welfare and stuff. And on the right hand side, this is from another research of mine. I just put it here because I want to see that like if we want to tackle about this pension reforms, or if we want to talk about like pension reforms, it's related to like multiple issues. Like we have to looking at like financial market, labor market, other macroeconomic and fiscal factors, aging population, and then there are multiple trade-offs here. So it's not just simple that we can just increase like pension or just decrease pension, right? Because it affects many parties. So first of all, it affects elderly. Second, it affects the younger generation, right? As I just explained, because the one who pay for this pension, it's us, right? So young generation who work in the labor market. So now we are financing like the elder, like older generations. So how can we balance this? How can we promote? How can I say? how can we sustain the system of pension without without cutting like incentives of the younger generation to work in the labor market, right? So now like some people might think that, oh, why I have to, like spend so many hours working, but 30% of my income just, go to this like pension or like taxes, and this kind of money just, finance this elderly, which is not really my cousins or my relatives, like why I have to work so much. So I might cut working hours because I don't want to pay tax like this much tax anymore, or I don't want to contribute like so much to this pension scheme and so on. So this can reduce the incentives of the younger generation as well. But if we cut the pension, then this will affect the welfare of the elderly, right? So they cannot enjoy, or they cannot really survive in this society anymore, because as I said, they don't have income. They just live on their own savings or live on this kind of pension money. Okay, I think I speak too much. We are still in the first few section. So this diagrams just give you the demographic outlook in East and Southeast Asia. So the first one just give you the overall picture of the world population. So even though like we see the rising number of the population like from 1950 to 2020, but when we're looking at the growth rate, which is represented by the green line, we can see the declining like of the growth rate, right? So even though the number is increasing, but it's increasing at the declining rate, right? And this happened like in most of like in most of in most parts of the world, I guess, except Africa. Like most of the continents are experiencing this like situation of the declining growth of the population. And now let's look at the right hand side. So I just break down like this world population growth by region. So we have Africa represented by orange color. We have Europe in yellow, Northern America in green. Then we have Asia in gray, and Latin America and the Caribbean in blue, and Oceania in dark blue. So if we're looking at the portion of each color, we can see that most of them are declining over time, right? For example, if we're looking at the gray portion, it has been increasing like from 1950 until 1970. But after that, like we can see some declining over time, like until 2020. And this is also happened in Latin America and the Caribbean, and also in Oceania and North America and Europe as well. So as I said, only the Africa that we can see the increasing or kind of constant growth rate of the population. Okay. And now this is just the picture or the image of the population growth in East and Southeast Asia, because in this presentation or this lecture, I just focus on East and Southeast Asia. So that's why I want to zoom in to this region. So overall, we see the declining rate, right? So represented by the blue line here. And then in East Asia, it's also declining over time, and Southeast Asia as well. But if we're looking at the rate, like in East Asia, the rate is much smaller than the Southeast Asia, right? So most of the countries in East Asia, including Japan, South Korea, China, and then one economy such as Taiwan, like they are experiencing this age population or super age population, right? So now, like in 2020, the growth it's even less than 1%. Like in Southeast Asia, it's still above 1%. And theoretically, I think the scholar, they think that like 2% is kind of good rate like for the population growth. But like in our regions, like in East and Southeast Asia, like the rate is much below than the 2%. Okay, and this is just like total population in East and Southeast Asia. So I think this gives a similar like message to the previous slide. So we see the decline number of the working population, and then we see the higher number of the elderly or the aged population. Okay, so this table just break down into different countries in East and Southeast Asia. So in Southeast Asia, I didn't include Timor-Leste, but actually Timor-Leste is also part of Southeast Asia. But in here, I just include the countries that are in ASEAN. So ASEAN is the association of the Southeast Asia. Timor-Leste is still an observer, but I think they will join ASEAN in the near future. So in this slide, I would like you to focus on the last column, which is the status of the aging population. So according to the World Health Organization, there is this criteria that categorize like each economy into different like aging society. So basically, if your country has more than 7% of the people aged more than like from 65 and older, then you are considered as aging society. But if the proportion or the percentage or the share it's more than 14%, then that particular country or economy will be considered as aged society. And if the proportion is more than 21%, then the country is considered as super aged society. So I'm not sure about in the case of European countries, but in East and Southeast Asia, the only country that became super aged society is Japan. And we have aged society, which is South Korea. And actually, this is not update, but Thailand and Singapore already entered the status of the aged society. So more than 14% of population aged from 65 and above. And then, of course, we still have like some countries or some economies that have like more young people. So we have young society, such as like Brunei Darussalam, Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos PTR, Myanmar, and the Philippines. So they can still enjoy this kind of abundance of the labor supply, right? And then enjoy this population bonus. Okay, and this figure just show you the OH dependency ratio. So basically, we just compare the proportion or the share of the people who are aged from 65 years old and above with the working population age, which is from 25 to 65. And Japan, we can see the very high, like extremely high OH dependency. So basically, 2 young workers have to finance 1 elderly in Japan. So it's kind of a very severe issue. But in case of, like other Asian countries, maybe 10 like young workers will finance like only 1 like aged population or elderly. Okay. So we done with the first section, and then I would like to move quickly to the second section about the fiscal balance in East and Southeast Asia. So for the second section, it's about the fiscal balance in East and Southeast Asia. And the first figure, like on the left hand side, it just show you the general trend of government fiscal balance, like by country group. So regardless of your country or your economy level, like whether you are from advanced economies or whether you are from emerging market or you are from low income developing like economies, like most of the economies run the budget deficit. So as you can see from the diagram, the government fiscal balance is in the negative dimension, right? So we are running the budget deficit. So basically our expenditure, it's greater than the government revenues. And then on the right hand side, so this is the case of Japan's fiscal position. So we have revenue and expenditure from 2000 to 2017. So as you can see, like from 2000, or I guess it's even before like 2000, the expenditure is 3 times higher than the government revenue. So this is the government expenditure versus the government revenue. So it's 3 times higher. And if we're looking at the breakdown, we can looking at the expenditure on health and expenditure on social protection, right? So from 2005, we can see the increasing or the rising trend of the expenditure on health, and then the rising trend like gradually increase like in the expenditure on social protection as well. And this account for like 7% like in terms of health, like in terms of GDP, and then account for 3% in terms of social protection. So as I explained, Japan is like super age society. So let's see like in terms of age society and also young society, like whether we see the different situation or not. So in case of Singapore, like the situation seems better, right? So revenue, it's greater than the expenditure like over time. But if we're looking at the healthcare like expenditure and social protection expenditure, we see the increasing trend of the both expenditure, and it account for 2% and 1%, like in the case of Singapore. And when we're looking at in the case of Philippines or the young society, like the situation is similar to Japan. Like you can see that the expenditure is higher than the revenue, but the healthcare expenditure is quite like fluctuating. But after 2014, we can see the increasing trend of the expenditure on social protection, and also increasing trend of the expenditure on health as well. So this might be because of the aging population. So even though they are young, they are still young society. But of course, like along the way, like the number or the proportion of the age population is getting higher and higher over time. Okay, so this is very technical. Basically, I just use the quantitative analysis and try to see the relationship between like population aging and fiscal burden, like from 178 countries. So I'm not going to talk in details because it's very technical, and I just show you the results, and then maybe we can have some quick discussion on this. Okay, I will just skip this, but of course if you are interested in knowing like about this like economic model, you are more than welcome to ask me after the presentation. Okay, so this is just my simple model. So I try to study or try to answer these 3 hypotheses. One, it's about the demographic transition and government balance. So basically, we hypothesize that the demographic transition, like aging population, has certain effect on the government balance, right? So I guess most of people think that there is negative impact or negative relationship between aging population and government balance. And the next hypothesis is about the demographic transition and government health expenditure. So it's the same, right? So if we have aging population, then this will increase. So there is positive relationship between aging population and government health expenditure. And the last hypothesis is about demographic transition and government debt. So we hypothesize that if we have more like higher aging population, then we tend to have more government debt, right? So these are all the three hypotheses that I want to test in my research. And this is just like regression results. Like you don't have to understand all this, but the bottom line that we found here is that government expenditure has a negative relationship with the government balance, right? So the higher the health expenditure is, the government balance will be lesser or will be in the negative like dimension, right? Okay. So basically, the health expenditure is statistically significant and shows a negative sign. So there is a negative relationship between health expenditure and government balance. But we don't really see any relationship between old age dependency or the aging population or population age over 64 or population age from 65, right? So basically, we don't see the clear relationship between demographic transition and government balance. Okay, and this just show you like the result of the second hypothesis. But just to give summary to all these results, I would like to skip here and then summarize everything in this diagram. So this figure to summarize our findings into simple diagram. So basically we see the relationship between aging and age population and government health expenditure. So basically the higher the proportion of the age population is, the higher of the government health expenditure will be. And this government health expenditure also affect our government balance like negatively. So basically, the higher the expenditure is, the more likely that we will have the government like budget deficit. And then we also observed the relationship between aging and age population with the government debt as a percentage of GDP. So basically, if the country has, higher aging like or age population, then they tend to have more government debt. And then we also observed the relationship between government debt and government balance. So basically, the higher the debt is, the higher the budget deficit will be. And another relationship that we found, it's the expenditure and government debt. So the higher the expenditure is, the higher the debt will be. So this is all the mechanisms that we found from our analysis. And as I just explained, like we didn't find the direct relationship like between aging and age population on the government balance, but we saw the mechanism that aging and age population might work through this channel of the government health expenditure or work through this channel of the government debt, and then this can affect the government balance at the end. Okay, so from our findings, we drew some of the policy implications, like in terms of like direct policy implications and indirect policy implications. So the first one, it's about the comprehensive review of the public health expenditure. So the government have to think like what kind of service that they should provide to the elderly, or like healthcare system like to the elderly, or what kind of features that they might be able to cut in order to balance the expenditure and revenue. And then they should have this healthcare reform as well in order to enhance or achieve the fiscal sustainability. And the last one, it's about the cost sharing measures. So instead of government like bear all the costs of the healthcare, maybe they can ask the private sector like in order to promote this kind of early year like investment, so that like after your retirement you have enough money in order to enjoy your life, or in order to finance your the rest of your life. When there is something wrong or when you are sick, then you still have your own savings like somewhere in order to support yourself, right? So you can buy health insurance, or you can invest like in mutual fund and stuff. So that's related to the financial literacy that the government should promote, like since the populations were still young, right? So they have enough time in order to study and also invest in the long run, so that they have enough money after the retirement. And then we also have indirect policy implications, such as like we might have to think about like the shift in the tax mix, right? So we might tax maybe rich people more, or we might decrease tax like consumption tax for aging population or something like that. So that can be another set of the study that the policymakers or the government have to consider. And then we can also strengthen like tax administration, right? So for example, maybe this might not apply like in terms of developed like countries or developed economies, but in like developing countries, like for example in Southeast Asia, we have this kind of informal sector. So people who are not really registered like with the government, so they work but they don't really pay tax to the government. So if we can strengthen this kind of tax administration, then government can increase the tax revenues, right? So they can finance this kind of healthcare system or like pension system better like in the future. And the last one is just like if we don't have enough revenues, of course, then we have to improve or increase our revenues by increasing like GDP, or like upgrade our productivity and so on. And that can be linked to the labor market as well. We might ask like elderly to work like after their retirement age, if they can still perform efficiently or like effectively in the labor market. So that can be one of the solutions to improve the tax revenues, or to improve the situation of the pension scheme like in the countries as well. So I guess these are all of the policy implications that we could derive from our analysis today. But of course, I would be more than happy if like you can share the experience of the Italy as well, because Italy, I guess like you are already in the age society as well. Okay, so for the conclusions, like many economies in East and Southeast Asia are progressing toward becoming aging or aged population, like aged societies, and the impacts of this demographic transition cover declining tax revenues, leading to fiscal imbalances, and also possible increases in government expenditures for coping with care expenses and pension schemes. So in this study, we found that demographic transition does not have a direct effect on the government balance, but instead has an indirect effect through higher government expenditure. So our findings promote important implications for fiscal sustainability and necessitate comprehensive reviews of public health spending, healthcare reforms, and also cost sharing measures. And these are some of the limitations of our study, like in terms of our econometric models and so on. Okay, so thank you very much for your attention. And if you have any questions, you feel free to ask me anything, not just about this content, but also about Japan as well. But if you are shy here, you can also send email like after this session as well. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor. And we wanted to really thank you, since you managed to explain such a complex issue in a very clear and linear way. And also thank you for providing a lot of graphs with the actual development specific to every country. As you may know, Italy is in a very similar situation to Japan. And we also wanted to ask you something about Italy specifically. I wanted to ask you, Professor, what is your opinion on the LDP measure on this topic, and specifically the range of time that goes from Abe and the Abenomics to current Prime Minister Ishiba Shigeru. Of course, you don't need to be super politic. I know it is a very complex issue, but just to give us your opinion on the topic.
Okay, sure. Thank you very much for your interesting question. Basically, I'm not, from political sense, but just from my own opinion and my own experience. Actually, I touched a little bit upon the policies of the Japanese government, like how they try to respond with this situation of the aging population. So the most obvious one is that they try to increase the number of the migrant workers in the country. So as I said, if you come to Tokyo now, you can see most of the people who work in the services sector, they are from Southeast Asia or Middle East or South Asia and so on. And in the healthcare sector, you can see many Filipinos, Filipinas, they are working in the healthcare sector as well as a helpers, right? So we have this kind of facilities to host the elderly population, but most of the staff, they are from these developing countries, and they try to relax the requirement in terms of visa, right? So they have this special arrangement between for example Indonesia, Vietnam, and maybe the Philippines. We call this Kenshu. Kenshu is training visa. So basically they can come for short term, maybe 3 to 5 years, to train and work in Japan, in certain industries such as healthcare or in services sector, right? And then after 3 to 5 years, they have to go back and then work in their countries. Yeah. So I think that one thing that it's very obvious. But in terms of female labor force participation, I don't really see much change, because as you can see, the new set of the ministers, most of them are still guys, are still male. So I don't really see the continuity of this Abenomics, in terms of promoting female nowadays. Yeah, it's still very male dominant society. Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much. And now I think Davide also has a question.
More than a question, is like a consideration about Italy. I found some data. According to World Bank Group, as of 2023, Italy, as of population, represent the 24% of people with 65 years old or above. And I think that that's a clear example of an aging society.
Super age society.
Yeah, so it's super 8. So it's the same as Japan.
Yeah.
But can I ask questions as well? Like, do you see any issues or any problems in Italy, like regarding this like aging population?
I think the problems are quite similar to Japan. We can see, of course, an aging uh, f- um, an aging society that participates in the labor force. Like old people, like retire in even older age, and we can also see more participation of women force of labor, and younger generations that access to work later uh, than the previous years.
Yeah, this is having very heavy repercussion on the young labor force, because of course if we still have people in their 50s or 60s occupying major position, this is preventing young people from accessing the sort of position. So it's having repercussion on the young workforce. And of course, I think that Italy as well is trying to implement workforce coming from other countries. So especially in the healthcare sector, we have a lot of immigrants. But also, I don't know if you're aware of the situation in Italy, but our government right now is not very keen on accepting all sort of immigrants. So I think they're trying to select what kind of workforce coming from other countries they are allowing to enter the country or not. So when it comes to trying to solve this issue of aging population, they're keen to accept immigrants. So when it comes to like young workforce or workforce that occupies all sort of different sector, they are not so keen on accepting it. So.
I see.
I just wanted to ask maybe if these models and consideration that you gave us in these sessions could be applicable to Italy, considering these factors and data that we found. Maybe the similarities with Japan could maybe be highlight some interesting aspects of these, and we would like to hear.
Yeah, I think so. Like it's actually this kind of findings are more like general, right? So it can apply to other countries. But as you just pointed out, that like the government is very strict on migration and stuff, so that might have some implications, because of course, like Japan, like it's kind of very close country as well. So that's why they are very strict, but now they are more open, right? So they try to relax some of the regulations, like in terms of visa. For example, before I got the permanent residency, I also got this like high skill visa. So they want like high skill workers to come to work in Japan. So for this visa, it's very like simple. Like you just count all the score, and if you pass like certain score, then you can get the visa. And after you got this visa, then you just work for a year, then you can apply for permanent residency. So this is how the government really put effort, like in terms of attract like high skill and also low skill worker as well. But as you said, like if we want to attract low skill workers, then we have to kind of select like what kind of workers that we want, right? And then I think Japan, they have this like kind of agencies that promote this, like training programs and stuff. Of course there are still some issues like going on, such as like like Japanese, they don't really accept like foreigners, right? So sometimes there might be some like harassment or some kind of power harassment or something like that. So but still they try their best, like in order to accommodate like all these different cultures. But I guess it's difficult for them because they have been closed for a long period of time, and now they have to really open to all the foreigners, like tourists and also workers as well. Yes. Yeah. So yeah, I think we can apply like some of the points like to Italy as well, but it also depends on culture, right? So maybe Italy is more open, but like Japanese, they are not that open. So
Of course, the factors are various and could differ from country to country and culture to culture. So maybe these models, as you said, are quite general, but we should delve into more into the details of some populations and consider this before before more
Making conclusions, yeah.
explanations and conclusions. Thank you
yes.
very much.
Yeah, thank
Thank
you very
you
much.
very much. And actually, like you point out, very interesting fact that I forgot to say. Like this aging population, it seems far, but it's not far, right? It's really have a strong impact on young generation as well, as you said, like because they are still there. So young people cannot, have a good positions. Like they cannot really work like in a good position. So that's really affect the young population as well. And as I explained in the lecture, we are the generation that finance like the elderly population. So I think there is very direct link between these two generations, and we have to really uh, think about this like seriously. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's the same in Japan, but I think that many people, many young people in Italy are like they feel the weight of this situation on their shoulder, and they are like trying to solve the situation by migrating themselves in other countries. So we have a lot of young workforce in Italy going to the UK or Spain or France and limiting countries. From what I heard from my friends in Japan, I don't think I see the same trend. But what's your opinion?
No, I don't think there is this trend. Like one thing is that because in Europe you have this European Union, right? So the labor force can work freely like across countries or even with the UK, right? But for Japan, it's kind of isolated, and we don't have this agreement in East and Southeast Asia, so it's very difficult. This is one thing. The second thing is about the language. Like Japanese, they are very conservative. Like they don't really speak English. Of course, they speak more now because there are like many tourists like from abroad, but still like students are, I think the majority of students after they graduate they go directly to the labor market. And we have the third point is that like we don't want to make, I mean Japanese, they don't want to make a gap in your resume, right? So after you graduate, I mean before you graduate, you have to get your job. Like if you make a gap like in your education and career path, then that's it doesn't look good like on you. So that's the third thing. Yeah, I don't see any trends that Japanese students they move abroad like to work. Of course, like if they are like good students like in international like programs, then maybe they don't want to work like in Japan. But yeah, I think most of students still work in Japan.
Yeah, we understand. It's much more strict. Okay, so I don't see any more questions in the chat right now. And thank you again, Professor, for being here with us now. Have a nice evening and relax. We know what time is it right now in Japan? Is it a 6 p.m.?
6 p.m. Yep, it's still not that late. Yeah, it's fine. But again, thank you so much for today. Like to give me this opportunity to meet like students from abroad. And again, if you have any questions like about this content or about Japan, you can just send me email as well. Okay,
Yeah,
thank you so
it's a-
much. Have
Thank
a
you
lovely
very much.
so thank